In seinem Modell setzt Hartmut Warm unter anderem die Umlaufbahnen von Planeten zueinander in Beziehung. Dabei erzeugt das Programm in regelmäßigen Abständen und über lange Zeiträume hinweg eine Linie zwischen zwei Planeten. In diesem Beispiel zwischen Erde und Venus. Zunächst erscheint die Anordnung der Linien wenig bedeutsam, doch nach Ablauf von 8 Erdenjahren erschließt sich daraus ein klares Muster. Bei dem Tanz umeinander formen Erde und Venus einen 5-Stern. Doch die beiden tanzen nicht allein. Markiert man alle 8 Jahre die Position des Mars, also immer dann, wenn sich ein voller 5-Stern zwischen Erde und Venus gebildet hat, zeigt sich, beide Planetensysteme stehen zueinander im Verhältnis von 5:4. Schon Kepler stellte sich den Aufbau unseres Sonnensystems wie ineinander geschachtelte platonische Körper vor, die zueinander in ganz bestimmten Proportionen stehen. Auch die Forschungen von Hartmut Warm weisen darauf hin, dass sich die Planeten in unserem Sonnensystem nach harmonischen Gesetzmäßigkeiten anordnen. Die Bewegungen von Jupiter und Uranus strukturieren sich im Laufe der Zeit nach der Ordnungsstruktur 6. Sie bilden ein Hexagramm.
Man sieht hier jetzt zum Beispiel, dass sich jetzt ein zweiter 6-Stern formt, der sich gegenüber dem ersten etwas verschiebt. Also es ist eben so, dass nichts genau so stattfindet wie vorher. Und jetzt wird bei Mars-Jupiter-Konjunktion immer eine Raumgerade zwischen Jupiter und Uranus gezeichnet. Also je weiter wir nach außen kommen, desto langsamer sind die Bewegungen der Planeten und desto größer werden die Zeiträume, damit es zu einer Figurenbildung kommt. Was wir jetzt sehen, das wird sich nach ungefähr erst 1000 Jahren zeigen, was da eigentlich verborgen drin liegt.
Die auf diese Weise sichtbar gemachten Ordnungsstrukturen scheinen wiederum in höhere Ordnungsstrukturen eingebettet zu sein. Lässt man diese Simulation von Jupiter und Uranus noch einige Jahrhunderte weiterlaufen, zeichnet sich verblüffenderweise der gleiche 5-Stern ab, der auch die Bewegungsmuster von Erde und Venus strukturiert. Erstaunlich, denn keiner dieser beiden Planeten ist an der Entstehung dieser Sphärensignatur beteiligt.
Übergeordnete Ordnungsstrukturen aufzuspüren, die nicht räumlich zu sehen sind, sondern erst raumzeitlich. Das, denke ich, kann zu Entdeckungen führen, auch im Rahmen der Astronomie, also die über das Planetensystem dann natürlich weit hinausgeht.
You can see the aurora in certain wavelengths, even from Earth. Hubble sees the ultraviolet aurora. What's new is that we're up close with Cassini, and that enables us to see details that we've never seen before. Cassini cameras are using visible light, so this is the first time we've got really nice images in visible light. I saw those auroras shimmering and changing with time, sort of flickering, and I just liked the action. I thought it was beautiful. We're always looking for similarities between planets, especially things that we can compare with Earth. In fact, the auroras on Saturn have a lot of similarities to the auroras on Earth. Both on Earth and on Saturn, you have charged particles from outer space crashing into the upper atmosphere and causing it to glow. The magnetic field guides the particles into the high latitudes. So there's northern lights and southern lights, and they're both near the poles on Earth, and that's also true on Saturn. It's near the poles that the magnetic field guides the particles into the atmosphere. I'm a weatherman. I like weather at all altitudes, from hurricanes near the ground to the weather of the top of the atmosphere. The vacuum of space has weather, changing conditions. We're learning about space weather.
The sun just dominates our sky as the source of light and warmth and life itself on Earth. And this preeminence of the sun is so clear and obvious that it remains a mystery why virtually every ancient culture insisted that before the present sun there was a quite different luminary ruling the sky. The central sun, the superior sun, the best sun, the motionless sun. And all of these cultures, whatever may be the meaning of these traditions, are insisting that the sky has changed. Of course, our ideas about the sun have continually changed. Only a few centuries ago, the sun was a campfire or ember in the sky. Then early in the 20th century, under the influence of gravitational theory, the sun was seen as a gravitationally collapsing nebular cloud. In the atomic age, astronomers began to visualize the sun in terms of a nuclear furnace hidden at its core. But now we're in the age of plasma science, with discoveries of the electric currents in space. And it's inconceivable that these discoveries would not change the picture of the sun again.
Plasma cosmologists have been able to demonstrate experimentally and also in the supercomputer that galaxies are an electrical phenomenon, which raises the question about stars, and in particular our own sun, which is the closest star to the Earth, of course. Any theory of the sun has to explain how it could continue to burn for billions of years, and also explain its present size based on its known mass. And of course, as soon as nuclear energy was discovered, it was grasped immediately as the energy source of the sun. But all of that assumes that the sun is disconnected and an isolated body, and that it must consume itself over its lifetime to provide the heat and light that we receive from it. But if the sun is connected to the rest of the galaxy in an electrical sense, it doesn't require to burn itself at all. And the energy that we receive is actually being received from the galaxy, and the sun is acting as a focus for that energy.
The sun is actually a fairly typical star. And so if we want to understand stars and cosmology, we really have to understand the sun. And the standard model of the sun, so-called, that astronomers are so very proud of these days, really doesn't explain very much about the sun. Why is there a corona in the first place? Everybody knows about the corona, the beautiful corona that we see during solar eclipses. Why is it there? It's clearly an electrical phenomenon.
One of the greatest puzzles about the sun has been, with a surface temperature of 6,000 degrees, high above that surface we have temperatures of millions of degrees. And the question has been, how do we get the energy from the centre of the sun somehow past that surface to heat the upper atmosphere of the sun to millions of degrees? In the electric model, you don't have that problem, because if the energy is arriving from outside the sun, the first place you expect to see that energy expressed is above the sun in its tenuous atmosphere. And that is the place where particle acceleration occurs, and the apparent temperature goes very high indeed, up into the millions of degrees.
The fact that the particles in the solar wind accelerate, that is to say, increase their velocity with increasing distance away from the sun, the farther away they get, the faster they go. And the fact that those particles are indeed charged particles leads me, as an electrical engineer, to come to the immediate conclusion that this is an electrical process. In the solar model, think of the sun as being a positive anode, very high voltage body that obviously would emanate an electric field. And if you put a charged particle in an electric field, it will accelerate. That's the way we accelerate particles here on Earth. It's the way every physicist and electrodynamicist has ever increased the velocity of a charged particle, is put it in an electric field.
One of the features we observe on the sun, which have no business being there according to the standard model, are sunspots. The most significant thing about a sunspot is the fact that the centre of the sunspot is dark. And if the sun is trying to radiate energy from its core into space, we should expect that it is bright.
And if you think about that umbra, that darkest place in the center of sunspots, that's the place where we can see deepest into the sun. And just consider the fact that at that point where we can really see down into the sun, that's the absolute coldest place that we are able to measure. If the center of the sun is really a nuclear fusion furnace, it should be the hottest because we're closest to the source, and it's not the case. If you ask any astronomer, why are there sunspots, why are the umbra dark, they will blame it on some sort of warped, twisted magnetic fields. They will say that it has to do with the solar dynamo, all of which lurk unseen like a big genie somewhere below the surface. These phenomena are only to be expected if the sun is electrical in nature. Astrophysicists make the claim that the solar fusion model has indeed been tested in the laboratory, and nothing really is further from the truth. Although each of the steps involved in the hydrogen to helium fusion reaction have indeed been verified experimentally, the overall experiment, the overall reaction, has never been produced in a continuous laboratory experiment. Continuous hydrogen to helium fusion has not been attained in the lab. The strength, in fact, of the electric cosmology is that indeed all of the mechanisms that the electrical people talk about have indeed been verified over decades, in fact, at least a century, in the laboratory. The plasma scaling is well known, and plasma and electrical experiments have verified every step of the way. There are any number of observations that have ad hoc present explanations, but really have no explanation in the standard model, and are natural consequences of the electrical model. For example, heavy elements, the solar spectrum, the neutrino deficiency, the neutrino variability, solar atmosphere, differential rotation by latitude, differential rotation by depth, equatorial plasma torus, sunspots, sunspot migration, the sunspot penumbra, and the sunspot cycle itself. Magnetic field strength, the even magnetic field, helioseismology, the solar density, and the changing size. All of the observations that in that list are natural consequences of the electrical sun model. Standard astronomers tend to pass them off as being inconsequential difficulties that will eventually someday be solved. I maintain, and so do our colleagues here, that these are not inconsequential, but are rather death blows to the solar fusion model, because they are important. They're not secondary. They're primary falsifying observations for that failed nuclear fusion model.
What I find so fascinating about the electric model of the sun is not just that it's a challenge to long-standing theory, but that it opens the door to the ancient world, to an electric sky. The electromagnetic phenomena that we now observe on the surface of the sun and in the vicinity of the sun are direct pointers backwards to the plasma formations that were seen above the ancient sky worshippers.
When we think of our sun, we tend to picture this great self-consuming nuclear furnace that will one day fizzle out when there is no more hydrogen left to sustain the fusion reaction. But what if this model is wrong? What if the entire premise, and indeed the whole cosmological model itself, is based upon a faulty foundation, that of gravity being the principal driving force behind the universe? We've all seen the sun's corona during an eclipse. This is a region of plasma extending more than 1 million kilometers from the surface of the sun and reaches temperatures in excess of 2 million degrees. There is a problem here. The surface of the sun itself only reaches 5,000 degrees. How can the heat from the inner core heat the atmosphere to millions of degrees, yet only heat the surface to thousands of degrees? Another anomaly is sunspots. These are regions where we can see furthest into the sun's interior, and thus, according to the standard model, should be hotter than the surrounding surface region, given that the sun is hottest on the inside. But in reality, sunspots behave in opposite manner. They are actually cooler than the surrounding region. In order to explain this blatant anomaly, astrophysicists have come up with a warped explanation involving twisted magnetic fields and the solar dynamo, neither of which are proven, let alone having actually been observed. One of the best pieces of evidence for an electrical universe, in my opinion, is the comet. Last October, Comet Holmes exploded in a brilliant fashion, brightening by nearly 1 million times in only 42 hours, and becoming visible to the naked eye. The comet itself is only 3.5 kilometers in diameter. This fantastic coma of fine dust has since expanded to a diameter greater than that of the sun. This sensational astronomical event barely even made the news, and the explanation for the outburst is equally as disappointing, that of it being the result of exploding gas from within the comet, despite the fact that Holmes is actually moving away from the sun, making the sublimation argument very weak. In July 2005, NASA crashed its probe called Deep Impact into Comet Tempel 1. This resulted in an immense flash of light, so bright in fact that the sensors recording the event were overwhelmed. NASA failed to predict this energetic outburst, but the plasma cosmology team at the Thunderbolts website did correctly predict this event. In 2000, Comet Linear, brightened by more than 50% in less than 4 hours, threw off large quantities of dust, and also began emitting X-rays, a telltale sign of intense electrical activity. Time and again, the so-called experts have been dumbfounded by anomalies and mysterious occurrences with comets. The standard model of a dirty snowball comet is well and truly dead. The electrical model has made many successful predictions regarding comets, and thus should be taken seriously by the mainstream cosmologists. There are two great examples of where the gravitational cosmological model has falsified itself. First is with a stellar object known as a pulsar. According to the conventional model, these are highly magnetized rotating neutron stars which emit a beam of electromagnetic radiation in the form of radio waves. The rotation of the pulsar, combined with the beam, produces a pulsing effect, hence its name. But there is a problem with this model. Some pulsars have a pulse rate so high that, according to known laws, the pulsar should fly apart under the strain. In order to plug this hole, the mythical neutron star had to be evoked in order to explain how this body could rotate at speeds so fast that under conventional laws should fly apart. But the problem is you cannot pack neutrons together as tightly as hypothesized in a neutron star. Laws in nuclear chemistry prevent this. So what you have with a pulsar is a completely hypothetical model that is unable to explain the observed evidence without straying into abstract physics and untested supernatural forces. The second example is with a stellar object known as a black hole. The first thing to take into account is that no one has actually ever observed a black hole, only the energetic effects surrounding these hypothetical objects. In order to explain the compact energetic activity observed at the center of galaxies, the black hole was invented using abstract gravitational mathematics. Gravity was chosen as the tool of choice because it was the dominant force of the universe, or so they claimed. There are numerous basic logical problems with these hypothetical objects and clear evidence that astrophysicists have tweaked the model when conflicting observational data was encountered. The jets seen near the black holes are an example of this. They are beams of energized matter travelling at nearly the speed of light away from the black hole. Yet, a black hole supposedly won't even let light escape its grasp, a simple logical contradiction, one that has resulted in another hypothetical object being invented, known as the accretion disk. This was conjured up in order to counter this problem. Again, another untested, unobserved piece of abstract physics created out of thin air. This is how desperate the experts have become to cling on to their gravitational dogma. The next thing I wish to talk about is the redshift controversy. Whilst not directly related to plasma cosmology, it is an important aspect in destroying the so-called expanding universe theory, as well as the Big Bang theory derived from this. Supposedly, redshift can be used to determine the distance of stellar objects from Earth, but an expert astronomer called Houghton Arp discovered numerous galaxies and objects with different redshifts that were connected to each other, thus falsifying the redshift equals distance hypothesis. One example is galaxy NGC 7603. As you can see, the main galaxy is connected to a smaller formation through an arm of plasma, known as a filament. The problem is that the smaller formation has a much higher redshift value than the main active galaxy. Rather than acknowledge this, the experts put this occurrence down to chance locations in the same section of sky. A research arm of NASA issued a press release in the 1980s claiming that two objects, galaxy NGC 4319 and a quasar called Macarin 205, were not connected by a plasma bridge. They also released a photograph apparently showing no connection. Both these objects have very different redshift values, but it can be shown that they are in fact connected together via plasma filament, thus placing them at the same distance from Earth. Why did they release a misleading image, and also why did they feel compelled to issue a press release? I'll leave you to ponder why. So far I've only mentioned aspects of plasma cosmology in space. Now it's time to bring the focus much closer to home. On December 12, 2007, NASA released an article stating that it had discovered magnetic ropes connecting the Sun directly to the Earth, and that these are also responsible for the aurora borealis. The truth is, a man called Christian Birkeland thought of this phenomena himself over a century ago, who coincidentally was born on December 13th. NASA failed to credit Birkeland and also get the terminology correct, Birkeland currents rather than magnetic ropes. Birkeland also recreated many other phenomena seen in space in his laboratory, such as planetary rings and energetic displays of cometary jets. The conventional theory regarding lightning is that it is produced by turbulent interactions of raindrops within a cloud, which generates a charge. Even as a child I knew this explanation was blatantly absurd. Not many people know, but the discharge of plasma we see between Earth and cloud is only half the picture, and plasma formations actually occur simultaneously above the cloud as well as below. These upper atmospheric discharges can reach up to 60 miles above the Earth. It is believed that the Space Shuttle Columbia might have actually been struck by upper atmospheric lightning. NASA denies this and even confiscated pictures from a San Francisco newspaper to silence investigation. Is this yet another example of NASA deliberately suppressing information?
Sprites are gigantic electrical discharges that blast upward from thunderstorms, nearly 60 miles above the planet. Early film showed they appeared as streaks or tendrils. But new ultra-high-speed video shows sprites begin as intense balls of electrical energy, first shooting down, then up, moving at an incredible 1/10 the speed of light. The unexpected discovery could lead to a new understanding about the role of sprites in changing the atmosphere's chemistry.
Biological life would not be possible without electricity, and the role it plays has been greatly underestimated in my opinion. Our cosmological paradigm inherently influences every other scientific discipline, and the disconnected, gravity-driven Newtonian model has surely shielded many aspects of reality from us, least not in the biological sciences. One should also not forget that light is a form of electricity, and when you consider how crucial light is to our ecosystems, the true importance of electricity becomes apparent. But by far the greatest implication of electricity in nature is surely its role in consciousness. It is now understood that the Earth's magnetic field is not only detected by certain animals for navigation, but by humans as well, and that it plays a crucial role in our mood and circadian rhythms. The pineal gland in the human brain is very sensitive to magnetic fields, and it is this gland that produces melatonin and regulates our sleep cycle. The resonant cavity between ground and ionosphere is excited by lightning strikes and gives rise to the Schumann resonance, first detected by Nikola Tesla. It just so happens that the resonant frequency matches that of the human brainwave state known as alpha, or a relaxed state. There are also correlations between other brainwave states and the resonant frequencies of other cavities, such as the Van Allen belt, the magnetopause, and even the Earth's crystalline inner core. When you realise just how electrically interconnected biological life is with the Earth, and how the Earth is electrically connected with the Sun, the rest of the galaxy, and even the entire universe, you can begin to appreciate just how important electricity is. We really do live in an electric universe. There is much more fascinating information available that I did not discuss in this video, and I will leave you to discover it for yourself.
Auf diesem Satellitenfilm sehen wir ein großes Gebiet mit seltsam feststehenden Wolken. So kann man unter anderem hier und hier Wellen und Rippen erkennen, die fest an ihrem Platz bleiben, ganz wie festgehalten. Von unten betrachtet sieht das Ganze dann so aus. Die Wolkenbänder weichen nicht von der Stelle. Mehr noch, man kann die Welle förmlich sehen, die in dieses Bild passen würde. Die Struktur bleibt über viele Stunden so stabil, dass wir unsere Welle unverändert einfügen können.
This time around, and I won't let my own fears
Hi, heute ist der 4. Januar 2012. Mein Name ist Peter Martenson und hier ist Ihr Wetterbericht. Die Sonnenaktivität hat während der letzten Woche um einiges zugenommen, aber auch die Erdbebenaktivität. Und darüber werden wir heute sprechen. Erinnern wir uns, letzte Woche schwebte unser Planet genau in der Flugbahn einer oder vielleicht zweier recht großer koronaler Masseauswürfe, wie man in dieser Vorhersage des Goddard-Weltraumlabors sehen kann. Beide trafen am Mittwoch und Donnerstag letzte Woche auf die Erde, hatten aber nur geringe Auswirkungen. Sie lösten diese schwachen geomagnetischen Stürme aus, die sofort wieder nachließen. Währenddessen wurde es auf der Sonne allerdings im Röntgenbereich sehr aktiv. Eine Sonnenfleckengruppe, die vorher relativ ruhig gewesen ist, begann zwischen dem 25. und dem 29. Dezember wie ein Maschinengewehr Sonneneruptionen der M-Klasse hervorzubringen. Wenn man näher hinsieht, da wird es wirklich wild. Am Donnerstag begann eine weitere Sonnenfleckengruppe, die gerade sichtbar wird, auch Sonneneruptionen der M-Klasse zu produzieren. Eine dieser Eruptionen war sehr hell im ultravioletten Strahlungsbereich. Als diese intensive ultraviolette Strahlung die Erde erreichte, löste sie eine sogenannte plötzliche ionosphärische Störung aus. Wir wissen, dass wenn die Ionosphäre des Planeten sich sehr rapide verändert, sie das Potenzial hat, elektrische Ströme durch die Erdkruste zu treiben und dann dort bestehende Potentialunterschiede in Form von Erdbeben zu entladen. Das könnte die Ursache für das Erdbeben der Stärke 4,0 in Ohio ein paar Stunden später gewesen sein, ganz in der Nähe der Grenze zu Pennsylvania. Ein seltenes Ereignis für diese Gegend des Landes. Wir halten zurzeit in der ganzen Region östlich der Rocky Mountains Ausschau nach einer möglichen Wiederholung der New Madrid Mega-Erdbebenreihe von 1812, besonders weil die Sonne auf etwas wie ein neues, großes Dalton-Minimum zusteuert. Am nächsten Tag, am Neujahr, kam es vor der Küste Japans zu einem Erdbeben der Stärke 6,8 und am Tag danach bebte es im mittelatlantischen Rücken mit 4,8. Zur gleichen Zeit löste eine Gruppe von Sonnenflecken, die gerade außer Sicht rotierte, diese lang anhaltende, faserartige Eruption aus. Man sieht sie hier etwas näher. Ein wirklich schönes Phänomen. Die Eruption löste einen schwachen Strahlungssturm in der Erdatmosphäre und einen geomagnetischen Sturm aus. Bald darauf, am Dienstag, traf ein Beben mit Stärke 3,2 die Region Oklahoma und vor der Küste Kaliforniens bebte es mit 4,1. So sieht es derzeit aus. Das neue Jahr beginnt mit einem Knall. Wir sollten uns erinnern, dass all diese Aktivität darauf hindeutet, dass unser ganzes Sonnensystem und vielleicht unsere ganze Galaxie auf eine heiße Aktivitätsphase zugeht.